Welcome to the Consciousness Anywhere and Everywhere podcast. I am Shannonohara, and I invite you to a completely new world of possibilities. Hello, everybody. So today's topic is perceiving. And I love being able to go through these very core, quintessential, what I would call like the cornerstones of the Access curriculum. We've done Ease, Joy, and Glory, and now we're going to move into perceiving, knowing, being, and receiving. So it's perceiving, knowing, being, and receiving. When I first heard about them, I had no idea what it was. And over years of cultivating more consciousness in my own life, I began to get what they were and how they worked. So the lower harmonic of knowing is thinking. The lower harmonic of being is emotions. So thinking is the lower harmonic of knowing. Emotions is the lower harmonic of being. Sex and no sex is the lower harmonic of receiving. Feelings are the lower harmonic of perceiving. Now, I need to make a differentiation about feelings because there's the feelings that your body has, like feeling hot, feeling cold, feeling hungry, and those are feelings for the body. Then there's the other feelings, which are the misidentification or the lower harmonic of perceiving. So when you're feeling angry or feeling frustrated or feeling confused or feeling happy even, you want to start to recognize that every time that you are expressing like a non-body feeling. So you have to be clear. If you're going to be applying this information and everything that we've talked about in these Facebook Lives, and especially with perceiving, knowing, being, and receiving, if you're actually going to be applying these to your life and seeing how you can get this new way, this new information, you're going to have to start to question the way that you function. And when I started learning about perceiving, knowing, being, and receiving, I had to really start to look at, okay, so like when I was doing a lot of feelings that weren't body feelings, remember, body feelings are different. Body feelings, feeling hot, feeling cold, feeling hungry, feeling like you're laying on a rock. Those are different kinds of feelings. Those are actually body feelings. But when you're talking about psychological feelings, feeling sad, feeling happy, feeling confused, feeling frustrated, those are actually indications of a perception that you're misidentifying as a head feeling. And so right now, like, think about yesterday or think about today, because for some of you, it's very late at night. So just think about today. For me, it's really early morning. So yesterday seems like a better reference point. How many feelings about everything did you have that were actually perceptions? And for example, we're staying in this really amazing house that's in this really cool beach town in Australia. And the way that it's built is there's a lot of houses up on the hill. And so there's a lot of like amplification of noise and sound, and you can hear your neighbors a lot. And a lot of the houses are like wide open. And there's this party house up on the hill. And so for the last 4 nights, I mean, they've just been like belligerent parties, like yelling, screaming, drinking, crazy, insane stuff. And like all night long and all morning long. It's like they never go to sleep. And so I was laying there last night and I was like, oh my God, I fucking hate these people. And it was like, that was this feeling of like frustration and also sort of helplessness. Like I can't change this situation. So I was feeling frustrated. And I went, okay, wait, so if this isn't a feeling, what perception is this? What am I aware of? Because I'm always looking for, I don't like being stuck in like my feelings or being in reaction to stuff. It just doesn't feel good to me because I know that things can be easier and more spacious. Even in difficult situations like belligerent neighbors, like that even can be easy. So I kept going into my questions about like, okay, so like if I can't get them to stop, what can I change about my point of view to make it easier in my world? And I started being aware of like everything that was going on in their worlds. And it's one thing to hear the noise from the party, but then it's this whole other thing to get this download of every single person there and everything that's going on in their universe and all the alcohol and all the demons and all the entities and just all their projections and expectations and their weird stuff around sex and everything that was going on there. And that is what the full perception was. It wasn't just about these obnoxious people making noise. It was, yeah, they're being loud and obnoxious, but everything that goes along with what's going on in their world was the full perception of that situation. It's like, how much have you guys tried to, well, first of all, how much have you misidentified and misapplied like full perception as feelings of frustration or feelings of overwhelm or feelings? period. And all that is, we guys destroy and create it. Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, POD, POC, shorts, boys, mans. What if your head had no feelings? And like I said, like, you need to make a distinction between head feelings and body feelings, because body feelings are appropriate. Like, your body will feel like it's stepping on a rock. That's like a nervous system sensorial perception that you want your body to have so that it doesn't hurt itself. But when you're talking about like your other feelings, frustration, confusion, like I've said already now 3 times, please can you start to question every time you're having a feeling, you need to go, okay, what perception am I actually having here? Because you're not feeling, you're misidentifying or making personal some perception. And this is what's important, is to recognize that you're aware, whether you realize it or not, recognize it or not, and definitely whether you know how to deal with it or not. And awareness is not what we're educated in. In fact, most people fight against awareness and tell you you're weird and crazy and wrong when you're aware. I was watching this, in Australia, they have this show on TV, like The Secret Life of 4-year-olds. And it's like a child development psychology show. And then they do The Secret Life of 5-year-olds and The Secret Life of 6-year-olds. And it's basically a show, like they set up these like dynamics with these children, like film them. And then they have these like 2 like children's psychologists, developmental specialists, like watching and making comments and stuff for like the audience's benefit. And you're watching the show and like you see these kids for like who they really are. Like, one of the little girls in the show is just like this really like manipulative, condescending, like bossy, like really like almost dangerous little girl, because she's like tricking all the other children to like do her bad work for her so they take the blame and she gets the reward. And she's really smart in the way she manipulates the situation. And she's just really like, if she loses or doesn't get her way, she just cries and throws a temper tantrum, all of which are female powers. And then there's other kids that do other things, and you're watching, and there's all these different dynamics, and you're like watching these kids like this, and the psychologists are not actually indicating what the children are doing. They're going, instead of saying she's manipulating to get her way and she's using any emotional blackmail she can to get her way, they're saying she needs to learn how to lose better. So they're not actually identifying what's going on. And this is when we begin to not be able to actually identify what's going on for us, because no one ever actually, number one, saw us for what we were doing. And number 2, everyone wants to pretend like it's not what it is. And so I think sometimes when we talk about consciousness, it just seems like this big theoretical, like undefinable, unachievable, like philosophy, rather than this awareness of practically actually being able to identify what things are. And in the process of identification of what things are, or owning what things are, being honest about what things are, we can really set ourselves free from a lot of the energy that gets created through misidentification or misapplication. Because when you call a feeling rather than a perception, you're actually misidentifying what's occurring. What if you as an infinite being had no feelings? Now, this is a weird question, and I think one a lot of people aren't comfortable with, because then it leads to like questions like, then wouldn't I just be like a sociopath? Maybe. But would you be willing to find out what awareness was like, actually understanding and exploring it as awareness rather than calling it feelings? Because when you call something a feeling, you can never get free of it. You've like owned it and you've actually misidentified it. When you misidentify something, especially your feelings, you literally get stuck with it, to put it simply. And so with this amazing conversation about perceiving, perception is not a mental process. And this is where perceiving, knowing, being, and receiving really become great stepping stones for accessing more consciousness, embodying more consciousness, changing all energies with ease. This is where we have to actually start to discover, to dive into, to explore what perceiving specifically is, rather than always giving validity or solidity or reality to our feelings. And so like, what if every feeling of frustration, feeling of confusion, feeling of even fondness or happiness, feeling of fear, etc., 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 were perceptions. And so like I gave the example of this party house up the hill where I'm staying, and I was really frustrated with the noise, but then it was like this, but then when I really started to question, okay, so how can I make this easier in my world? Wow, I really had to acknowledge how much I was perceiving about their worlds. And as soon as I like sort of saw and spotted like all that weird stuff in their world and how insecure they were and how lost a lot of them felt and how like unconscious so many of them were and how some of them were humanoids and some of them were humans and just like so many different dynamics. As soon as I spotted all that, and it took me about all of 7 seconds to get all that information, because awareness is quick. Thinking and understanding is extremely slow. So as soon as I got that information, just as I was laying in bed last night, it was like all of a sudden my attention moved off them and all the noise. And it was sort of like, yes, the noise was there, but it no longer had an impact in my world because I finally identified where my attention was stuck. Because I was no longer going into they're wrong, they're frustrating, they're obnoxious. I was, oh, wow, how aware I am of where they're functioning from. And as soon as I identified that I could be aware to that degree, it relaxed my whole space. So what awareness and what perception are you always having that you do not acknowledge? And this is where you have to be very cognizant of acknowledgement, because it's one thing to be aware and to never understand that awareness or to never recognize that awareness. And there's another thing to be aware and to actually, wow, acknowledge your awareness. And if you acknowledged your awareness, what would change? And how many of you guys try to understand or define or control or confine awareness and perception of awareness to the laws, the rules, the decisions, the reference points that you've already concluded are real and true in the world? And how many of your reference points of reality are obscuring or perverting your clear, easy perception of all energies? So that is who you guys destroy and uncreate it, please. Thank you. Right and wrong, good and bad, all 9 POD POC shorts, boys and beyonds. One other thing that I really want to say about this quality of perception is to recognize perception is like weather. It's always changing. Perception is this always fluctuating, changing thing. Knowing is different. Knowing is this substantial sort of mountain of knowing. I know this. And it doesn't mean that it's concluded, and it doesn't mean that that doesn't change, and it doesn't mean that knowing is fixed. It means that knowing is this like substantial constant in the universe. Perception is not a substantial thing in the universe. Perception, well, it is substantial, but the substantiation is quite different. It's more like the weather. It shifts and it changes and moves constantly. Perception is like the wind. You never really know where it's coming from. You can definitely sense it. And it's always different. And so if you recognize that you might perceive something in this 10 seconds, and then it'll be different perception in the next 10 seconds. Okay, so perception is not like this concrete thing, like I perceived this once, therefore that's always the way that it will be. Perception is an ever fluctuating, shifting consciousness. Okay, so I hope that helps in some way. So there was a question here, Shannon, can you talk about perceiving the future? Yeah, so that's interesting. I've been having a lot of weird experiences with dealing with the future, in that I was in this place where I was like trying to adjust the future from right here, which was actually making my head hurt really bad, because you can't actually be in the future. You can perceive the future. The future is determined by our choices. So what choice can you make today to create a more conscious future right away? And everything that doesn't allow that, destroy and uncreate it. Right, wrong, good, bad, all 9 POD POC shorts, boys and beyonds. Choices determine the future. And so they can determine how the future creates. So when you make a generative choice, you create more future potential possibilities. How much of your life today is the result of choices or decisions or conclusions that you came to 5, 7, 10, 15 years ago? And all of the decisions, conclusions that you came to 5, 10, 15 years ago that are limiting the choices that you have today to create a better future right away, will you destroy it and create all that? Right and wrong, good and bad, all nine, pod, pack, shorts, boys and beyonds. And so I actually believe that there are people who are future seers or futurists who have a much easier time being aware of the future than other people. I'm not actually super one of those. I can tell what's a conscious choice today, and I don't really know where it's going to lead or how it's going to look like when it shows up. I just know that if I follow the energy in the choice today, I know that it will turn out well based on a lifetime of experience of following the energy. So I'm never trying to figure out what the right choice to create the life I want to have is. I'm always asking the energy, listening to the energy, and making choices based on the energetics of awareness. This is why perception is so important, because you cannot, it's like if you do not have perception, what do you have to rely on? Like your logic. And logic is so limited and so confined to the parameters of someone's limited reality. Logic is a definition structure. It's not a possibility generation. And that's where perception is actually how you access greater possibilities. Like at any moment, you can have a definition or you can have a possibility. Is your life about possibilities, or is your life about defining reality? And everything that is who you destroy and create it. Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pod, poc, shorts, boys and beyonds. And so if you're going to function from a more conscious space, can you define consciousness? Can you define the future, or can you only perceive possibility? And if you could never define the possibility, you could only know it as it shows up. Would that be enough for you, or would that be too light, spacious, uncontrolled to be real? And so everything that is who you guys destroy and create it. Right and wrong, good and bad, all nine, pod, poc, shorts, boys and beyonds. So a question here. Hi, Shannon, can you say more about perceiving the positive feelings? Is it also other people? Yeah, so let me use this as an example. I have a stepdaughter, and she is like so fucking awesome. And just like this like beautiful, kind, energetic, beautiful being. And I just admire so many qualities about her. And it's been this interesting experience because I found myself with her trying to go into some sort of definition of the relationship, as we do with our families and especially our children and our parents, and definition of the relationship. She is my stepdaughter. This is our relationship. And none of that ever felt right. And I still continued to have this incredible like sense of joy whenever I think about her. And I used to think it was because I liked her. Like I'd be like, yes, I really like her. But I could like even feel when I would say it, how it was like clunky. And then it occurred to me that, I mean, yeah, I like her, but that's less relevant. What actually is occurring is like, she has this incredible joy, like in her world, like just perceiving her, I could sense like everything that she has available in her world and what the world is for her that she's not thinking about. She's not like defining it. I mean, she's 9 and I've known her since she was 3. So it's like, she's not understanding that as her personality definition. She's just being it. And being with her and knowing her, there's all of that is her world becomes available to my perception as well. And so like, I'll go for a walk with her. We went for a walk. It was raining here, but it's like a tropical rain when it rains here and it's quite warm. So she comes, she's like, do you want to go down to the beach? And I was like, it's raining. And she's like, yeah. And I thought, right, okay, who cares if it's raining? Like, let's go for a walk. So we got some umbrellas and we go walking barefoot down to the beach, which is only just like a 3-minute walk down there. And on this walk, she's like discovering lizards and flowers that I didn't even see, and seeing all this stuff that like, I was like going on that walk with her was like, whoa, like this chick is like engaged with her environment. And it showed me how like much she was having so much joy and pleasure just walking down the street that she's walked down like 50 million times just to go to the beach. And everything was this magical experience for her. Like literally, she has access to so much beauty in the world and so much of the magic that the world has to offer. And if I misidentify that and say that like, almost like go into positive judgment about her, like, oh, she's so lucky, or she's so beautiful, or or she's crazy, or she's weird, or she's this child who like is off with the fairies. Like if I go into any of that, which a lot of like how much was projected and expected of you that was about fitting you into this reality rather than somebody perceiving and receiving the magical world that you lived in and honoring that, even if they didn't have access to it themselves. And so this leads me to this other thing about how perceiving, knowing, being, and receiving always go together. Perceiving, knowing, being, and receiving always go together. So you can't have perceiving without also having receiving, knowing, and being. So they're actually all go together. Sort of like you can't breathe without simultaneously oxygenating your blood and having a bunch of chemical reactions happen in your whole body. Like your body is a whole system. You can't experience one phenomenon of the body without also acknowledging that it works in harmony with so many other phenomenons. And this is the same with perceiving, knowing, being, and receiving. Is when you are acknowledging greater perception, you will be growing, stimulating, and strengthening also your receiving, your knowing, and your being. And that's where it might be interesting for you guys to start to look at today. It's like, which of those four are you very good at already? Like, which one of those do you have as sort of one that, if that you do have one that works for you pretty well already? Like for me, knowing weirdly was always one that was easier. I developed knowing very early on based on a lot of being facilitated by Gary, and knowing just came for me. And so, but ones that I did struggle with was receiving for a really long time. I didn't get what receiving was. I like couldn't, but then bit by bit it started to come. And so if those of you guys that want to have more consciousness in your lives and want to really work on these tools more, one of the ways in which I developed greater perceiving, knowing, being, and receiving was by asking, what is perceiving? And that's it. I'm just literally ask, perceiving. What is it? What is it? What is it? And then the universe would start to show me. And it's this incredible gift if you can get it. So remember, like, this is really key. And some of you guys might disregard this because it's too weird or it'll change your world too much. But if you recognize that every psychological feeling was actually the lower harmonic of a perception that you're having, how much would that change the way you see the world and function in the world? And would it make you less at the effect of the world? Cool. So there you go, you guys. There is a nice little bite of the journey of perception. And again, like once we finish and cover all perceiving, knowing, being, and receiving, it's a great quartet of possibility. And I hope that some of you guys dive into some of these questions and really access greater perception and see how perception changes how your life shows up. It's phenomenal. And some of you guys might think it's too easy. The thing with the tools of access is they'll make your whole universe lighter, more spacious, and more ease-filled. And if you believe that life needs to be hard, or there's a density that you believe is important or required, you will reject a lot of this information about perceiving, about knowing, about being, etc., because it doesn't match the solidity or the density, the intensity of so much of the world, of the people that live around you. And so look to nature to learn about perception. Look to the animals. They're aware. It's just people that are lacking these essential energies. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Look forward to talking to you next time. Thank you for listening to this show. My target is to make consciousness easy to find and choose. So if you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a 5-star review on iTunes and share this with somebody who you know who might be looking for more consciousness in their life. You can visit me on Shannon-Ohara.com or talktotheentities.com. And to learn more about the amazing tools of Access Consciousness, you can visit accessconsciousness.com and be sure to subscribe to the podcast.